The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans.
Why did I think I could do this?
I went places and did things that I could never have, even dreamed of.
That's the whole reason I started the Snowboard Realms.
Those are lifelong friends that you
It's just so much love.
You were just lame, really, if you went to the Olympics.
For Granada hardcore.
Like, as far as my kids are concerned, everything that I'm into is just dumb.
If you actually look at posing, which is the worst thing I could ever be, that is social media.
Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Crow's Nest Barbershops, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Anon makes goggles that work in all weather conditions. The past few days on Vancouver's North Shore Mountains have required a face mask in all public areas and in the lift lines, so my Anon goggles have been the easiest way to comply. Anon's MFI, or magnetic face mask integration, seals the included Anon face mask to the goggle in one quick snap. Removing and putting your face mask on could not be easier. Some Anon models feature spherical lens technology, which mimics the curvature of the human eye for superior optics. Please check out Anon goggles at your local snowboard shop. Before I start the show, I just need to say a huge thank you to all the amazing people who've reached out to encourage me to keep making FNRad. Your support means more to me than you'll ever know. Sincerely, thank you. This week's guest is Mark Sollors, a Whistler legend who's earned his stripes riding everywhere, in the park, in the streets, and in the backcountry. Mark will be featured in the Burton One World movie that started streaming live November 17th, so check that out, please. Mark's a consummate professional on and off hill, the type of guy you want to introduce your kids to as an inspiration for what you can achieve when you find your passion and pursue it as a career. We recorded in Mark's garage last week as the snow began to fall.
Sound levels are okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Cool.
So I'd love to start at Man Boys. I didn't realize there was 3 in the beginning. Who were the first 3?
Well, it wasn't necessarily that there was 3. Like, it was already a group when Rusty and I moved to Whistler back in 2003 or something. So it started with Mikey HK, Robin Taylor, Jesse Fox was a part of it. Wow. It was like this crapnito Man Boys kind of group. And we were like the little Groms that were new, and like these guys were riding the park every day. And we're like, you know what? We want to hang out with you guys. You guys are fun. And we just like followed them around. Right. And then it came to a point where, it was 2014 when we first started this newer version of it. And I don't know how exactly it started, but I was already doing like the Burton movies, and I was like, okay, like I want to do something with my friends. And Rusty was doing the same thing. He was kind of planning out like, hey, what do I want to do as well? And like we were filming with Jody and Belzil, and we were like, why don't we just kind of start doing our own thing? So Rusty had the idea of like revamping that Man Boys thing, because we were all still like best friends with Robin Taylor as well. We wanted to put that fun, creative, goofy kind of snowboarding, but then also have as world classes, like we can be in the backcountry.
Yeah.
So it was Rusty and I that basically took charge at the beginning, but then it was Jody Wozniak was in there, Matt Belzo, obviously. Like this is the same crew that's here now, and then we got Chris Rasmussen in as well.
That's so sick. Mm-hmm. So the first year. Was it a movie? It was like a mini series or something. It was like
it started as a web series, which is basically what Man Boys and Crapnito was when we first. All they did was film themselves in the park, like creative, fun videos. And like you look back, like Torsten Horgmo was like a huge fan when he first came to Camp Champions. He like came up to Robin Taylor and was like, "I love Crapnito and the Man Boys," and like that's like he was a fan of it.
That's so dope.
And so we're like, well, why don't we just kind of keep that going, but elevate it to us filming in the backcountry, and that way, instead of like getting split up, not hanging out with each other all winter long, it was like we kind of, or at least they, because I was still filming with Burton, but they can go and film together in the backcountry, and we can kind of all collaborate on this project.
Yeah, it's so sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now it's like I'm not really a part of it as much anymore. Like Rusty has taken the helm completely.
Yeah,
and fuck, they have killed it.
Oh,
I mean, totally. The new movie that just came out, Snowdance, is so sick, and it's like that old school kind of part video, which is. I feel like there hasn't been, or there are part videos still, but what Man Boys has been doing for a long time is that montage, fun kind of, it's not about one person, it's about the whole crew.
Yeah.
And this kind of like part video, I was like, man, this reminds me of like old school snowboarding. Like I was like really pumped when I first watched it.
Yeah.
I think when you're figuring out like songs and how somebody flows and like the movie has to have, like a start, a middle, an end, basically.
Totally.
And the footage you came across, your riding style, who you are as a person, what song you use, I think really plays into that where you're going to sit in the movie.
Yeah.
To really, because you want every part to have like a feeling or have something. And I think that plays into everything. So it's funny. We've had this conversation before where it's a lot different than the skateboard industry, where companies will do movies or like people will have parts and it'll come out every, let's say 2 years, they'll work on it. And it doesn't have to be, coming out in October or December, January, whatever. But the snowboard industry, we have to produce something every year because all the budgets revolve around that. So it's like all the marketing dollars come in, you spend your winter filming, you edit, and then you're releasing that fall. And It's like this kind of tracking. You're like, okay, great. That was good. What do you guys want to do this year? It's like every year you're producing this thing. And I think a lot of riders get burnt out on that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work.
It's repetitive to a certain degree, but I mean, fuck, we all just love snowboarding so much. And every year it's like the seasons aren't long enough.
Yeah.
So like you come to the end of the year and you're like, man, like I missed this opportunity, or I wish I got this trick, or I wish I got to ride this zone. I had plans I didn't want to do. So then you come into the next year like even more hungry because you're kind of like, okay, this year I want to get it done. But then the season ends again and you're just like, I didn't get what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I wanted to be a pro snowboarder, but I didn't know what it was. Like now kind of knowing what the job is. We talked about it on the Kearns podcast about like what it feels like to have that new generation show up in your backyard. And then you're like, okay, I'm not willing to do that. So.
No, I think that's very interesting that you bring that up, because that's something I've kind of, I won't say battle is not the right word for it, but that's been in the back of my head for the past year and a half, 2 years probably. Like, I'm 34 now. I love what I do, but I'm not that 18-year-old hungry kid learning quads and triples or whatever in the park. That's just, I'm like you said, I'm not willing to do that. It's just not what I want to do anymore. But when I watch these new kids, I do get a level of insecurity where like, shit, like I'm supposed to be a professional snowboarder and these kids are fucking way better than me, like riding in the park, and I'm just like, it's kind of this level of like, should I still be doing this? Do I need to wrap it up? Like they're clearly way better than me. I can't hold my own to it. And it changed so much when I was in New Zealand a year and a bit ago. Craig and I went down and we did some summer boarding, and I was like pretty nervous going in there because that's where all the contest guys go. I was like, all right, this is kind of like, I'm just going to go ride the park. I'm going to go have fun. And at times when I first got there, I was like a bit insecure. I was a bit nervous. I was like, shit, if I can't do these basic tricks for them, they're going to think I suck. It's going to, whatever. It was all ego, like to a certain degree. It was what I perceived them thinking about my snowboarding. And it turned so quickly. The more I started talking to them and hanging, and like they knew me as the backcountry rider. They grew up seeing what I do from like the Burton movies, even the Transworld movie back in 2010. Like I'm running on a decade now of like these new kids coming up and like producing videos. So that dropped right away. Like I would do a 7 and they'd be like, sick, Mark. And I was like, yeah. I was like, you're right. There is no like we're not on the same level. We're not riding the same. There's no like animosity. I don't need to be like embarrassed about it, because I look back when I was a kid and I would see like Laurie Ascari riding through the park, or like whoever riding through the park. At no point was I, oh, he only did a 5. That wasn't that good. Like I could go do a 5. Like I was just like, fuck, he's got good style. Or like, this is sick. Like I'm snowboarding with them. So now I'm like kind of at the point looking back where I'm like, I don't need to be insecure about not being as good as these park riders. It's more just like, we're snowboarding, we're different. And like, yeah, I'm different, in a different position now.
Totally.
I think it's just something you create in yourself,
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to like the whole, like you are your own worst enemy, like, like any like regret I have or whatever. It's like, it's all based on my view of either like intimidation or like the snowboard industry of where I am supposed to fit into the industry. And I think that is like, that's the only thing I look back on. I was like, I wish I wasn't so hesitant coming into this industry, because our community is so welcoming and like so inclusive, and we're all there for snowboarding. But I almost like held myself a step out of it because I was like, oh, like maybe they won't like me, or maybe I won't fit in, or maybe my riding isn't good enough. It's like, there's this term called the imposter syndrome where,
Yeah.
it's like these people are going to find out I'm not cool or I'm not a good snowboarder. And it's like, and I'm just like faking my way into this community, which is not the case at all. And I spent so long worrying about this to like a negative point. Like, I wish I had this kind of train of thought or knew about even this as a reality fucking 10 years ago.
Right.
Like,
Right.
who knows what I would have been doing.
Right. So 20 years ago, you're starting snowboarding. And why are you starting? Like, what was the catalyst for that? Like, where did you come from as a rider?
I started, I think it's the most cliche basic story. I got into it because my brothers got into it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's those are your biggest, or like if you have older siblings, they are your biggest influence when you're a child.
Yeah, huge.
And they got me into that kind of sport and outdoor kind of vibe. And it was really about like the freedom, they were like, I was like, oh, you guys get to go and just like play by yourself on this big snow hill. And I was like, I want to go and like leave my parents and like go and ride and do whatever I want. And that kind of is like what triggered it. And then as soon as I started watching snowboard videos, or as soon as I started going into the actual like core snowboard shop and started meeting like kids my age, that's when things just took off. I was like, this is for me.
So sick.
Yeah.
So those first videos are going to be.
Oh man. Yeah. My first video, and you know what? So my first video was TB2.
That's a
and
gooder.
my dad got it for me when I was at I think it was like the snow show in Vancouver when they had that indoor quarter pipe.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was 8 or something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
And like my memory is obviously skewed. Like I don't have it very clearly, but I got to watch like Devin and JP and all those guys ride it in the warm up. I didn't stay for the actual like event.
Yeah. I remember that was a stressful event. We were involved with it somehow.
There was like, I remember it was like a quarter pipe, but then it
Yes.
had like a wooden extension. Like,
totally.
I was like, what is
Not
it? Like,
on purpose.
No, and it was like the wood extension was like 4 feet higher than the actual lip or something.
It was gnarly.
Yeah.
It was such a mess. It just did not come together the way that the event coordinator had planned. Mm-hmm. I think I had something to do with the technical, like building of that. I just remember it being like, this is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like if it was me, I would have just canceled the event. I'm like, this isn't rideable. It's so weird.
Well, I'm glad you guys didn't cancel it, because that was like, I got to sit. It was obviously warm up, but I got to sit right next to where all the riders were hiking up.
Yep.
And so I had a brochure that had Devin's signature, JP's signature,
Oh, wow.
probably Peter Line's signature. Like,
Peter, yeah.
I have no idea where it is anymore, which is just killing me. But
Yeah.
I got to do that when I was 7 or 8 or something. And that's
That's
where
so
I picked up
sick.
TB2. And,
Yep.
but it wasn't when TB2 first came out. Like, I'm pretty sure it would have been like a clearance bin or something.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
cause TB2 would have came out in like,
It was
90.
filmed in 92, so it would have came out in
Yeah.
93, and that would have been happening in probably 95. Yeah.
Okay,
so-
95.
yeah.
So I probably, I was definitely riding already by then. So I would have been like 9 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But anyways,
sounds
we
right.
got that. And it's funny looking back, like TB2 for me is still such an iconic movie.
Oh, me too.
Like
yeah.
Slasnik, Terrier, like Jamie Lynn's part. Like it was just
Yeah.
like insane that was my first snowboard movie introduction.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good place to start.
Oh God. Yeah.
So where are you at that time? You're up in Kelowna?
Yeah, we had just moved up to Kelowna, and that's when we were super close to Big White. So that's where my family was like, I think it was because they put on this pass where it was like, for family passes, it was like 2 adults with like, if you buy like a lift ticket for your kid, then the rest of your family gets like free seasons passes.
Oh, wow.
So we had a family, like when my mom remarried, it turned into 5 kids. And 2 parents. So they were like, this is the cheapest sport we can do as a family, which is so funny because snowboarding is not a cheap sport.
Not at all. Right.
But that's pretty much what they did. And that was my introduction.
Good work, Big White, on that promo,
Oh, man.
right?
Yeah, thank you.
And Big White, I think I've ridden there once or twice. Maybe I haven't yet.
It's a fun place to go. But
Yeah.
I could not have left there faster. You
Yeah.
know, like once I got the permission to move to Whistler, I was fucking out of there.
How old were you by the time you moved to Whistler? And are you hooked up at that point? Like, have you linked
Yeah.
up with like Martino and the Burton thing?
Yeah, exactly. Martino was the Burton sales rep for the time. Sorry, I should start with Island Snow was my shop sponsor at the
Rad.
time. And we had some great people working there, and they kept kind of like pushing me towards Martino, you know. Martino's like, all right, let's get him. I had like analog pants at the time.
Sick.
And he was like, I loved it. He knows to wear analog. and I think that's what kind of triggered it, because analog was fucking sick back in the day.
So sick.
So I got hooked up with that. We did like one, I think like kind of like BC rep team trip out to Whistler. And that was my first introduction to it. And I was like, yeah, I need to be out here. And I mean, it's weird how like certain things in life can change it so much. Like when 9/11 2001 happened, I think my mom was a flight attendant. She's retired now, but she basically like, I think it kind of hit her hard. And she looked at it being like, life is very fragile. And it's like, she really started believing like, do what you love. She's been so supportive of our whole family for doing whatever we love, no matter how like kind of out of the normal it may be. And she was like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to snowboard. She started talking to people like, what does he have to do if he wants to continue snowboarding there? He's got to move to Whistler.
Wow.
Like I was, you know, like just through high school, it's like I was riding a big white Saturdays and Sundays. That was it. You know, it's like you look at people now, they have like academies and schools where it's like kids aren't even going to school anymore.
Right.
It's like they're riding every single day. And I think that's amazing. But that definitely changed it, where grade 11, I ended up doing partly distance education.
Cool.
So it was like half homeschool. That was like my test. My mom was like, okay, we'll do this. You still have to go to school like twice a week, every second day. And the rest of the time you'll do it homeschooling. And if you can do this, we'll set you up in Whistler with the family and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So I did it as best I could. And sure enough, she was like, yeah, like you can do this. I'll let you move for grade 12 to Whistler. We'll set you up with the family. She organized it through the school. And I did my schooling distance education.
Dude, that's so sick. So where's the school here? The one up in Pemby?
No, it was the Whistler High School here.
Whistler High.
And basically I was doing distance education. So the school I was technically going to was still in the Okanagan.
Oh, sick.
But they had, because of the ski racing and all that stuff, they had an avenue here where you can go in and use the library, you can talk to teachers and do whatever. But I pretty much did most of it at home.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so sick. So you're living here like 17 years old. You're basically
17, and I moved to Whistler.
Moved out of your parents' place. And
my mom keeps saying that when she dropped me off here outside the house, she was driving away and I was just sitting at the end of the driveway, like waving and like looking around like, holy fuck, I'm in Whistler, like 17-year-old kid and like pretty naive and young. And yeah. And she said the next day she woke up and there was like an article on the front page of the Kelowna newspaper, like, Whistler drug problem, how like kids are doing drugs. Oh no. And she was like, what have I done to my baby boy?
Yeah, Whistler back then was probably a bit of a different place, right?
It was an entirely different place than where I grew up. So that was was a shift for sure.
So what's your schedule like as a 17-year-old kid? Like, are you doing school 2 days a week, like you were saying? Or was that that was at home?
Yeah, that was
now,
just so that I had to still go into school and have the structure of being in the classroom. And as long as I did like the work when I wasn't in that classroom, my mom was like, okay, I trust that you can continue doing this. But once I moved here, like I was still doing it, but it took me like, I don't think I graduated until probably like 4 years after I was supposed to. Like, it definitely slowed down a little bit. So you
rode every day. That was
every single fucking day.
That was the deal.
Every day.
Every single day. So do you get really good really quick?
I mean, I don't know. I'm the worst at being like, I got really quick, really. You know, it was more that I think I just started getting, you know how like we were talking about intimidation. And it's like, I definitely am more reserved in that sense where I can be intimidated very fast. So I felt like the more I was riding in Whistler, the more comfortable I was getting.
Cool.
Which, you know, like if I'm riding on weekends and I see a pro snowboarder or something, you know, I was like terrified. I was like, my friends would be like, oh, let's go have a photo. And I was like, no, like, don't bug them. Like, we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think it was more the comfort of like being in Whistler and riding in front of people that are older than me and better than me and everything that really just helped it.
What's the focus at this point? You're just freestyle? Like, are you lapping the park? Does a powder day like register as like, holy shit, this is going to be like an incredible day? Or is it like
pretty park ratty?
Yeah. They're like, they probably won't have the park groomed yet. Like you're kind of like just frothing, waiting.
It's like a little laugh, you know, where it's like even on powder days, some of the best powders in the park.
Yeah, man, totally.
You got like fresh groomed underneath and like a foot on top. top and you just hit all the knuckles, and it's nice.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone. No, at that point, yeah, I was still park riding as much as I could. I was getting in with the Nomis crew at that time, so I had Simone Chamberlain to look up to.
Rad.
And we would ride together a ton. And he obviously at that time was like a super pro.
Yeah.
So that was a fucking game changer, just like hanging with him. And he's such like a welcoming, sensitive, kind, good person that I think that really helped me. And I don't want to say anything negative about Whistler, but there can be a lot of avenues you take in this town. And I think getting in with him was a little bit of that balance where it was like I had my friends where, you know, I could go like underage drinking with or like whatever, you know?
Yep.
But then the next morning, if I was hungover and like riding with him, he's like, "What are you doing? Like, you still drunk? Like, fucking, you can't ride. You're going to get hurt." And I was kind of like, "Oh, yeah. Like, maybe I should be a little smart about this. Like, tomorrow's a good day. Maybe I just won't drink, you know?" Like, that kind of level, I think, helped a lot, especially as like a 17-year-old moving away and living on my own.
Yeah. When you are riding every day, are you even cognitive of the conditions that are coming down? Or are you just getting up and like,
I think it's getting up and going.
are you going for first chair? Is that the idea?
No, I wouldn't say I would go for first chair.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? Like back in those days, I really enjoyed, and I still really enjoy riding by myself. And again, it goes back to that little level of like intimidation where I put it on myself, where I'm a little bit uncomfortable riding and other people having different expectations of my riding. So I think even back then, that's what I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed getting up early, going for like first groomers, warming up, having the park to myself, and like doing like learning tricks that I was uncomfortable trying in front of other people.
That's really rad.
Yeah. I still do that now.
Oh, that's so sick. Yeah,
that's nice.
It is really nice. Yeah, I mean, that's old man style for, you know, you go to the skate park before there's a bunch of kids there.
It's like the only time I skateboard.
Yeah, me too. When I came out here, it's just so big. That's the thing, is that compared to, you know, Big White, it's big, it's intimidating. The jumps are humongous. Remember the park being kind of out of control, how big stuff was getting compared to everywhere else in the world. I really felt good staying small in like Vancouver. Like it felt good to go to the little resorts there and be like, I'm looking around. Okay, there's no pros here, you know?
I think it is a balance of like where you are in your snowboarding, you know, like if that's what you have fun doing, go and do that. Don't listen to anyone else. Like, which is
right.
Interesting. Cause at the time when I was riding there, I had friends be like, "Come over to Whistler Park, hit the smaller jumps. We'll just goof around. It's fun." I was like, you don't have to take it so seriously. And I was like, but I'm having a lot of fun riding these bigger jumps.
Yeah.
Like that was fun to me. That moment of like, you know, like it's funny talking about this now because I don't hit those big jumps nearly like as much as I used to.
Sure.
But like coming and going fast and like the wind and everything, and then just like, whoo, like the silence of being in the air and then like somewhere like landing again. That like I'd live for that. Like I would like kind of like zone out in that time, like just doing a frontside 3 or something, and just that sound and you're free and in the like that was like my addiction.
Yeah, I remember rolling up to, I think it was called the Black Park. At one point you needed a helmet and you needed to like register to be there, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like.
The helmet thing was so funny, dude. I remember, I can't remember if it was Brian McClatchy or E-Man or somebody like we would always just like fuck around being like, how can we get past this helmet thing?
Yeah.
And somebody hollowed out a watermelon and put like a little strap around it, and they're like, it's a helmet, and they're like, okay, fucking go ahead, you idiot.
Wow.
Like it was like everyone was like trying to get past this like helmet law.
Yeah.
But honestly now, especially what's going on now, I'm a huge supporter of it.
Yeah,
I
of course.
still personally don't wear a helmet that much.
Yeah, me
like
neither.
occasionally if we're riding like some lines or something I'm super uncomfortable with, I'll put a helmet on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I'm not wearing it. But like watching what those contest kids are doing and like riding pipe,
Yeah.
100% put a fucking helmet on.
Yes, please. Totally. Yeah, I make my kids wear a helmet and I don't wear a helmet a lot of the time, but I'm definitely not in a contest. That's the thing. So it felt like that's what it felt like at Whistler around that time, 2003, with the big park.
It was so fun.
Kind of divided out. All of a sudden it was like, oh, I can't even go in that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I didn't have a helmet. It was because that first jump, hut jump or whatever it was called.
Shack.
Shack, exactly, was like, that was where it separated the men from the boys, essentially. It was like, okay, like you could see it from the chair. It was like hardly anybody hitting it. But when people hit it, you're like, how did they get that good? Like, how do you get that good? And you get that good by riding every day and getting comfortable on that big of a jump.
It's something that a lot of people bring up. They're like, oh, you're crazy. Like, you're hitting this stuff. You're jumping off cliffs like that. You're nuts. And it's like, no, we're just like very calculated and like we're experienced. And it's like, we've been doing this for a long time where it isn't crazy to us.
Right.
Obviously accidents happen, but we are as preventative as we can be.
Totally.
Like my nickname is Safety Sollors because I'm just like, a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I think that's like just a general rule of life where it's like something you don't understand or you don't know anything about or you haven't done research, you don't know the homework, you're going to have a different perception of that sport or that, thing in general. Like, God, even just being like a doctor or like a scientist, I'm like, man, that is crazy. Like, how can you do that? And they're like, I went to fucking school for 10 years or whatever. And you're like,
every day
of course, because you're educated.
Yes,
you did your research. You've learned this. It's not crazy to you. There's like a science to it. There's a mathematical like formula to like what you're doing. And it's similar to us in the backcountry. Like we are as safe as we can be. We do our speed checks. We check for, Mikey actually is the biggest advocate for this. He taught me this. We check for dimples in the landing. Like, do we have rocks there? Like, we're looking for any telltale sign that there is a danger, and then we weigh risk versus reward.
Right.
And we walk away. Mikey and I have walked away from stuff a bunch, and some of those days it's the hardest thing to do. Like a Bluebird day, a fucking sick feature, but there's a dimple that we're unsure about, and sure enough, we go in and check. Once we're like, I'm not hitting it until I know what that is. Then we put a track in, we go and check. Sure enough, it's a rock, and we walk away from it. And that's like those are so clear in my mind of like moments that I'm like super proud of because we didn't put ourselves in danger just to get a fucking shot.
Right.
Like we were as safe as we can be. And it was like, that was the right call. And I thank Mikey so much for teaching me that. I've learned so much from Renzi. He's the man.
He seems very calm and collected, right?
Yeah. I know that like a lot of people are like, man, just going backcountry, Mikey, you'll learn so much. And I have learned a lot in the backcountry from Mikey, but I also learned stuff from like Sean Johnson and like all these other guys. Like I spent time in the backcountry before riding with Mikey. I think he's taught me the most of stuff off snow and just like him as a person. And like, and he's challenged me on stuff too, where we'll talk about something. He's like, well, why? Like, why do you think that? And I'll be like, oh shit, no one's ever really asked me that. I was just like, I thought it was cool. And then I'm like, all right, let's break this down. Like, why do I like this thing? And these are like little triggers, that I like never really thought of before. And now it's like coming back more and more in my life where I'm like, oh man, like really think about it. Like, why are you excited to do this? Or like, why shouldn't you do that?
Is there a contest or something that comes up where you get to showcase or like compete against other people in Whistler and you come out on top kind of thing? Like, how do you get to this A-list Burton guy while you're, riding in the park for fun, it sounds like?
I mean, how I got here, I fucking don't know. I mean, it's a series of, I can say like I was lucky, but I mean, we all know luck is bullshit. Like this is the classic, like luck is a combination of preparedness and opportunity. I think that's the saying, right? It's like right. Luck is
Yeah.
So it's like, really, it's like, okay, like I did all those days in the park. Like a perfect example of this is, I was at this contest in Australia back in like 2009. It was right before, it was actually, I think that kind of like summer trip down there gave me the invite to film with Transworld, which ended up being my like rookie of the year. And basically the huge Kickstarter to everything.
Yeah.
But I was down there and it was this, it was a big air event. And then once you're in the finals, your ranking is your drop order, and it's a like Wheel of Fortune type of spinning, and then whatever it lands on is the trick that everyone has to do.
Oh, cool.
And then you have to spell out, what do you have to spell out? Like you had to spell out something. So every time you landed whatever the trick was, it gave you a letter, and then whoever's the first one to spell that out wins. And I ended up qualifying first. I think I did like a front 9 or front 10 or something, and got qualified first. And then as we were going into this, every time the wheel would roll around, it was a trick that I had already been doing a bunch.
Oh, nice.
And then it was like, one of them was like, pick your own trick. I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to do something like I can do.
yeah.
And it just worked out. Like I went through the order. Like I landed every trick, and then I ended up winning, which was fucking insane. But that's one of those things where it's like, you can look at it as like, I got really lucky that all the tricks are like, I was able to do them. It's like, or I just did those tricks, and as the opportunity arose, I took advantage.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's sick. Who put on that event? It sounds so quirky. That's awesome.
Honestly, I think it was like one of those like MTV events down in Australia. You know how it's like MTV Snow Jam or whatever. Yeah, I think it was like one of those, or maybe it was like a Bell Mobile, or I don't know.
Sure, it was like some big name sponsor thing, and they came up with this weird format that was
it was super fun. It was super fun.
No
like
doubt.
some of the tricks on that wheel, thank God it didn't come up, but it was like some of the tricks were like switch method, and it was like, you know, like a fucking like 65-foot jump or something. I'm like, thank God I didn't have to try a switch method on that.
That's so sick. That's great. So that jump starts the career. You get invited to film. Who films for the Transworld part?
That's when I first got to film with Devin Walsh, which was insane.
Nice.
But that year it was like Devin Walsh, Ika Backstrom, Jussi Oxenen, Keegan Maleka. Like it was,
wow.
I was not supposed to be on that crew.
Well, obviously you were. That's the thing. You had earned your place there. That's epic.
It was definitely one of those, like, I was given an opportunity that, you know, like, I had to seize it. There's nothing you can do. And thankfully, like, those guys, again, are amazing. They're so amazing, and they're so welcoming, and they're so inclusive that they help me get kind of through that and take advantage of my opportunity.
What era of UC is it that you're filming with them?
That was just before, so that was 2010. That would have been like just before Burton started making the movies again.
Yeah.
I mean, he was as prime as can be. He's always been an amazing snowboarder, but he was, that guy is just a very, very talented snowboarder. Yeah,
so cool. Cool that you get to count yourself in that group of dudes. And what, like, are you instantly learning the lessons that they have to teach? Are you resistant to do you have that imposter syndrome? It sounds like
very
you
much so.
do.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that, you know, that regret I have of that imitation where I don't think, like, that year, I should say, like, I didn't hold back. Like, that was, you know, like, I was nervous and whatever, but like I took advantage very much of my situation because I knew how important it was. And thankfully I did, because that was my whole shift of, like, before that I was doing these contests, I was getting like top 10 or whatever, like, but I wasn't that first place podium on the regular kind of guy. And this is an opportunity where I was like, okay, I can film for this. And if I show, it was when there was a divide between like contest and filming to a certain degree. I was like, if I can do well at this, then I can show them that I'm a filmer, not necessarily a contest guy. I get shy and like reserved in contests. I get intimidated a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is where I can excel in the backcountry. And sure enough, after that, it was like Burton was just like, fucking don't even bother going to contests if you don't want to. And it wasn't like pressure in any sense. Like, Burton very much is like, what do you want to do? And let's help you do that. And they saw, like, they were obviously planning to do a movie. So it was like, yeah, you just go film. That's what you want to do. We'll go film.
So sick. So was that when you got your first sled, or had you had sleds for?
I had a sled for a number of years before that, because really, like, the whole filming, I'd been filming my entire life because obviously, like, I grew up watching videos and that's what we wanted to do. So as soon as I started riding for a shop sponsor, they had a filmer. It would snow in the streets. We would go film rails.
Rad.
Be powder in the area in the mountains. We would go ride in the mountains, and all spring we would just ride park. Like, that was kind of the rotation of like what we did. And we just filmed it all over and over and over again. And then when I moved to Whistler, I was able to start filming with, first I filmed with Craftnito and the Man Boys on that first crew. And then I filmed with Sandbox. So San Salona was involved in that. 2007, because at Nomis, I filmed with Sean Johnson during child support.
Oh, rad.
That was a fucking
epic
lesson. Holy man.
Yeah.
That guy is so legit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's perfect era Johnson filmer. He's like on fire at that point.
He was so on fire and like so supportive, man. Like, actually, I have a board over here where him and JP and Simone, it was like a proto Burton board that got sent to me, but for some reason it got sent to like one of their houses or something. I don't know how they got across it, but they covered it in like stepchild stickers and wrote like, yo, come ride for us, man. Like, cause obviously like I was still very low on the Burton ladder.
Sure.
And they were like, fucking come out with us. Like, we'll just film and do this. And I was like, man, I can't just bail on Burton. And it's really cool. I'll show you when we're done with this.
Please.
It's pretty neat.
That's so sick. So you're learning how to sled and stuff with a crew of people that have been out there since before.
Yeah, I was, I would say like looking back now, there was a lot of times where I fell more into the rookie of the group for a lot of, as I was climbing these ladders, like I was obviously the rookie when it came into like filming a Sandbox, and then got the opportunity in Child Support. I was a rookie in the Child Support video.
Yeah.
Going out with Transworld 3 years later, 2010, definitely the rookie in that crew.
Yeah.
And then Burton started making movies, and that's where I started getting more comfortable into kind of my setting.
Yeah.
And I feel like the change is so fast, going from I'm kind of still learning, I'm the rookie, and then all of a sudden you're like, there's a new wave of kids, and you're like, you're the veteran, teach them. It's like, take these kids out, start teaching them. It's like that transfer is very fast in snowboarding.
Right.
Where you think you're still learning, you're still coming, and then all of a sudden people are looking at you being like, yo, how do you do this? And like, yo, can you give me some pointers? I'm like, shit, man, like I feel like I'm still figuring myself out.
Yeah.
And now I'm supposed to be like helping. I'm happy to do it. Any questions that come up to me from like younger kids, I'm so happy to support them, but I like hesitate sometimes. I'm like, I'm still learning myself. So like, I want to help you, but I hope I'm giving you the right advice.
How many seasons did you do like kind of resort riding, mostly resort riding, before you started, backcountry stuff?
I would say like the whole time was always resort, up until, cause like even when I was at Big White, we would go and hike like Little White or East Peak, I think it was called. And like, we would go and like ride the backcountry that we had access to at the time.
Yeah.
And then same thing when I moved to Whistler, I was like, I would ride the park, but then we would also go explore a little bit in the mountains. And then once I got the sled, I was like, okay, I'll dabble my toes over here and start riding this kind of stuff. So I don't think there was like a harsh change of, okay, I'm riding resort, and now I spend all my time in the backcountry. Like I still love years before, like we still love going up there and just riding the park and cruising. Like I'm very much a snowboarder that I need to snowboard to be good.
I hear
to be confident, like in myself. So like I have to go and ride, and so that when I go in the backcountry, I'm not sitting there like, fuck, I haven't snowboarded in 2 weeks. Like, how do I do this trick?
Right. Oh, that's so sick. That's cool to hear, because it's like exercising that muscle memory, right? Like that's what it is to be a professional snowboarder, is to actually snowboard. But
some people have it. Like there are so many pros out there that have that switch of like, I can turn on at any moment and I can chill the rest of the time. And I think that there's a lot of different riders out there, and they have different ticks, of how they snowboard and what they need to do. Some people cannot ride for a while, and then as soon as they get somewhere, do a couple laps, and they can just turn it on and they're fucking go.
Right.
And that's just personally not me.
Yeah. It seems like watching professional snowboard. I'm saying it like I do watch it. Whenever I catch like the Do Tour or something, like a highlight thing, I'm like, how in the hell does someone get that good? Or even just Mark McMorris's last Instagram edit.
Yeah.
You're like, that's an Instagram edit now? That was like that's like a part in a legit movie.
He is very, very, very good.
Unbelievable.
Utmost respect for that kid.
So were you here when he moved to Whistler?
Yeah.
And then were you guys on the same team kind of thing?
Really like move here, like he came here a bunch. Like it wasn't until he bought the house here that he's been spending, or like has lived here,
Right.
But yeah, we just through like Burton and being Canadian snowboarder, like we've competed. Like before I even filmed, we competed when he was like a kid.
Oh wow.
And I remember like, I think it was at the Canadian Open in Calgary. I think I got 4th at that contest or something, but I remember watching Mark, and he was trying all these doubles, and I was like, man, as soon as he starts landing those, he is going to be winning. But at that time, it was like he was still figuring it out, where it was like, okay, like he was getting the flips, but it just like the air awareness or whatever, just it wasn't, putting them down consistently.
Right.
But you knew, like watching it, you're like, fuck. As soon as he gets it, everyone else is fucked.
Is he training on airbags and stuff as well?
He doesn't hit it.
No. So he's not that
kid
generation.
That kid is it sounds weird saying this, but he is as like core as like a snowboarder is.
No, that doesn't sound weird at all.
Yeah. I just know that there's a lot of people, it's like there's core snowboarding, there's mainstream, but he's
Right.
like, he is as core as you can get because that kid fucking lives and breathes snowboarding.
Yeah. He's an anomaly, it seems like. Yeah.
Well, I respect it so much how much he gives back to the community. Mm-hmm. Like he isn't just taking snowboarding as like a tool to be successful. He like literally loves snowboarding and it has like shaped his life and he wants to better snowboarding itself.
That's so rad.
Yeah, he wants to make sure that like his kind of like moment in time within the snowboard world is to like, I don't know, benefit's the right word, but pass it forward, you know, just to continue like,
Yeah.
when he was snowboarding and he was in his prime and he like his whole time right now, all he wants to do is make sure snowboarding continues to like grow in the right direction as it should be.
That's so rad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I interviewed Terrier, he mentioned Shaun White, like, and I don't want to throw shade on Shaun White, but he was like, if we knew that kid was going to go that direction, wouldn't have put so much effort into like mentoring him. As far as just like, he's not paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like it became apparent that it was like all about Shaun as opposed to being like a part of this huge community.
Mm-hmm. And
it sounds like Mark has taken it that way. Like, because that's how Terrier was when he was competing. It was like he was the snowboarder's snowboarder.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't like a competitor only guy that you're like, oh, this guy goes to every single stop to like maximize his points. It was like you wanted to see him shred because he was like doing shit that nobody else could do, which was epic.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly right. Where there's certain people that use snowboarding as a tool for success, or you know, to move forward and just to use it. You know.
Yes.
And then there's other people that are giving back to the industry that want to grow the sport.
Totally.
They are very much a part of it, but
Yeah.
they just want to continue to grow it in the right direction. It kind of all goes back to something that Jake created or helped create. You know.
Who he really was came out in the last couple of years. It feels like a lot of people throw him respect that guy's way because he lived it. Like you can't front on that. He lived snowboarding.
His life is honestly as amazing, and I mean perfect's not the right word, but it's like as you could ever imagine. I mean, he's got an amazing family. He helped create this amazing sport that positively influences so many fucking people. And he was this is knowing from like my history with him, he's the most incredibly generous person that I've ever met. He'll go out of his way to be like, yo, like, you good? You having fun? And I'm like, yeah, man, we're having a great time. He's like, oh, good. If there's anything, you know, like, you know, it's like,
So rad.
there's not many people that are so successful and will go so out of their way to, like, McMorris put it the best way, the whole alley-oop term in the community, where it's like, yeah, like if you're in a position to like help somebody, fucking help them, you know. That's and it's like, and I can't thank Jake and what he's done enough. Honestly, like I already look at my own life thinking that I am so incredibly fortunate and like happy to be living this life and the friends I've made and experiences I have. And it's funny, like how often you can talk to people, be like, fuck, this is amazing. You know, like we're so lucky to get to do this. And like, he is the biggest advocate for making snowboard, in my opinion, making snowboarding what it is right now. And so many people have such amazing lives because it's something that he literally created.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing is that?
He didn't just physically create the board. He really fast forwarded what it meant to be a professional snowboarder, like with, you know, that early team with Craig and Duck Boy and Jacoby and Brushy, and like just, you know, he didn't want to lose sight of what was super important.
He's the biggest snowboard fan.
Yeah.
He fucking loved it.
Yeah. I heard he was very, like approachable for you guys. Like he was there.
It's been said, you know, like Jake is such a fan of the riders. And he's very like, he's like constantly like, this is a rider driven brand. Like, exactly. It's like, it's all
dope.
up to the rider. I mean, it started with Craig. Like Craig fucking helped shape everything of that freestyle world of like what Burton is now.
Yeah.
And I think Jake still holds that, like, he can't be thankful enough, you know, or like, you know, he just going and like hanging out with him, it was fucking unreal. And like, looking back now, I'm like, I was like, I wish I just took more opportunity.
Would you say you're in the Brandywine parking lot and it's Bluebird and the clouds just part? Would you like take a photo and like send it to him? Like, today's going to be a good day. Was that the kind of relationship
not on the regular,
sure.
But we'll get random messages. Like I was just the other day, I was just going through, cause I mean, it's still all on my phone, like all the messages with him. And you know, like there's just one random one where we hadn't talked in a while. And it was like, he was like, I just had the most violent dream. Like you were mean and crazy. He's like, tell me that's not who you become, man. And it was just like, it was sent at like fucking 6 a.m, you know? And it was just kind of like, oh shit. It's like just funny stuff like that, you know? And it's like,
that is incredible.
We were so fortunate. Like Mikey and I went down and we rode in Chile one August, and it was right when Jake was there as well. And it's to this day some of the best snow I've ever ridden. It was fucking deep. It was fluffy. It was light. It was completely Bluebird, like -8, like so comfortable. And he was helling around, and we were like messaging, and like we're in the backcountry riding POW, and then we all joined up for like a dinner and drinks and stuff. And we're just like, how fucking insane was today? You know, like we were all like little kids frothing like that. Like that's, I can't say enough. He was such a fan of snowboarding and like such a product guy. Like he was a product nerd. You know, like he loved talking product. Yeah. But I just love that it's something that's like, it was, you know, like fucking his life. Everybody came around. Okay, that's a generalization, but people that you wouldn't have thought would become Burton guys, like a Mike Rankwit. Like when I was riding with Rankwit, he was like, I'm a Burton guy for life, dude. Like it's hard not to be a fan of the guy who was the biggest fan of snowboarding. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. And I mean, obviously I ride for Burton, and I'm so thankful for that company. But what I'm most thankful for is like kind of like what Burton stands for, you know? And like people in the past may have like negative things to say, but is that Burton as the brand, or is that an individual that was in the brand? You know, like, are you holding on to like a personal thing that somebody in the brand maybe like said or did that you have this negative kind of thing about? But like what that brand stands for, especially now with everything that's going on, it's like they are so like climate driven. They're so like equality. Like, do you have the 77 tattoo? I do, yeah. Oh, it's front and center. Fuck, I love it. It's my only tattue. Dude. Really? Yeah, I don't have any tattoos. That was my first one too when we all sat down. Oh, that's so dope, dude. Yeah, that's the community thing you're talking about, right? Yeah. That's the community. And the more you like, and again, like I said, like I ride for Burton, so like I get to meet so many people within that company. Everyone is the same thing. They all have like similar values. They all love snowboarding so much. Yeah. And all they want to do is like go and ride or make it better. It is their community, you know, like nobody works at Burton because like, oh, I need to get a job. Well, Burton's hiring. I guess I'll apply. You know, it's like, they're like, I fucking love snowboarding. I want to try to get a job with Burton. Yeah. Yeah. That's a real difference. Mm-hmm. It had been a couple of years since Burton did like a dedicated Burton movie, right? Yeah. And the One World movie seemed to be Jake's idea. Like he was like, hey, how about this, you guys? How about we do an entire team video where like everybody on this huge team? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it necessarily started with them. I think it was like a group thing, but we were all in unison on it. When we were at the Ride It Roundtable, we were all sitting around talking about it. It'd be like, what can we do? Like what riders, like, again, it goes back to like Jake and the company being like, what do you guys want to do? And we're like, we want to do a project together, like our stuff. Let's do something that's like Burton. It's very us. And they were like, 100%, let's do this. Rad. You know, like, and it kind of goes back to this, like, I think snowboarding right now is in a very like authentic space. And that kind of goes like, all right, team, like we're all like so close. Everyone on the team is like, communicates with each other, friends with each other. We spend as much time as we can, but obviously right now I haven't seen anyone. I haven't seen anyone in like so many months. Yeah, it was a project like driven by Jake and the team, and something that we wanted to do. And so when they're pitching that, are you and Mikey thinking, okay, well we got the base camp for when you guys want to do some of the free riding stuff over here? Because it sounded like the kids came out. Oh yeah. But you know, and that's what I'm so fucking hyped about with like where snowboarding is and going at the moment right now is like, people are like, oh, what do we do? Like, is there value in videos or whatever? And it's like, I think there's a turning point right now where yes, like that is what people want to do. Like, just for example, like look at the past 2 Olympic gold medalists. You got Sage Gothenburg, Red Gerard. All they want to fucking do is film. Sage right now is like producing amazing snowboard videos, like Joy. I think he's got another one, Halcyon, coming out, and it like they all look so sick. Red last year fucking killed it in the backcountry. He only spent like a couple days up here in Whistler, but it was like we saw the footage and we're like, damn, yeah. And he's like a pretty small guy, so he's hitting big jumps.
Yeah,
and they fucking look even bigger, and you're like, oh my god, kid. But that's like, I don't know, like I have no worries of the future of snowboarding.
Good, man. That's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it's in a really, really good place, especially when you've got the kids that are at the peak of the contest scene coming into the backcountry to film still. Like that has a very long history of like, okay, competing's cool. Sure. It's fun. It's nice to have that testosterone based like ranking system and then go and crush. Obviously I've never gone and crushed. So but it's cool to see that the guys that are at the top are like, okay, I can't stay here forever. I'm going to go into the backcountry because obviously that's why I'm into it in the first place. Yeah.
It's something that stuck with me that Sean Johnson said in 2006 or 2007, whenever Child Support was with Defective Films. I think I had to leave a couple times to go and do like an event with Burton, like a contest or something like that. And he's like, why the fuck? Like, you're filming with a huge production company. Why are you leaving to go to do these contests? And I still saw them as opportunities. And I was like, I want to go and do this. But he said, he's like, back in the day, it's like you would do contests until you got either like famous or notoriety or like companies trusted you that you could go and get invited on film trips. Totally. And then once you started getting invited on film trips, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost coming around now where it's like a lot of these contest guys, they're doing contests. And I support this, by the way, like going and do contests and ride in front of your peers, get comfortable, like put yourself out there. But they're riding these contests until they get to a point where it's like, okay, now we can go film. Now we can go on some film trips and like go and get more creative and do whatever we can in the backcountry. And I think that transition is kind of happening again.
Snowboarding's got so many facets now. Like I just heard the other day that there's like a border cross board trader group in Facebook. Like it's just like so specific, you know what I mean? Like, so there's all these different communities of snowboarders. I had to ask if they're still racing in the Olympics. I didn't know. I'm like, are they still doing racing in the Olympics? Yes. Racers really got it bad. Like there was a time where racing and freestyle were kind of equal. If you were like a winning racer, you were like a pro snowboarder. And if you were a winning freestyle guy, you were a pro snowboarder. And then it kind of became like you didn't have sponsors anymore if you were a racer.
Yeah. I mean,
you were on your own.
I obviously wasn't around back then, so I don't know what the vibe was. But in my head, if I look back there, I'm like, well, I mean, if you're racing, you pretty much are doing the same shit as skiing. So it was like, where's training, that like drive to do something new if you can just do the same thing on skiing? Where I think the invitation for a lot of like why I got into snowboarding was like that freestyle kind of like you're doing something different. Like you could not do what they were doing on snowboards back then on skis. And I think that was kind of that like, oh shit, like I'm gonna go jump around and do tricks and ride powder.
That shack jump was dominated by snowboarders for the first couple of years, I think. Maybe I'm wrong on that. There was some skiers that hit it for sure, but it seemed like it was more snowboarders.
I mean, well, back in the day, it was a snowboard park. It wasn't, and then now it's a terrain park. It's like, but that's what it was. Like when I first started going to Big White, it was like you would go and do little ski turns or whatever. And then I was like, man, see my brother somewhere. I was like, I want to go do that. That looks way more fun.
Yeah.
So,
it's nuts. I love that I can see how excited about snowboarding you still are. So at what point in your life was it a career choice? Like, was there a point where you're like, like I'm going to go be a doctor or I'm going to snowboard or I'm going to put this on hold and snowboard?
I think I always wanted to just snowboard.
Cool.
Whether it was a job or not, that wasn't even an idea until probably around that time where I started getting like a sponsor and being like, oh shit, what do I have to do to do this? But before that, it was like we would just be boarding on Saturdays and Sundays on weekends and with my friends. Up until I started, getting like sponsored and stuff, I wanted to go to McGill in Montreal and be an architect.
Oh,
I was
cool.
kind of like, I think I want to go to architecture school and
Yeah.
kind of create stuff and like build these houses and designs and stuff.
Right.
And fuck, did that go out the window?
Well, life gets busy, right? If you're flying around doing contests and riding every day.
Yeah.
It's
I
like-
mean,
yeah.
I couldn't imagine if I made that decision not to continue snowboarding and go to school and do architecture. I mean, I think I would still be happy because I wouldn't know anything different. And I think that's with everything. It's like you can say as much as you want, like, you know, live a life of no regrets, but, you know, no one's living like that. There's always thoughts.
Yeah, of course. So the Powhound stuff, how long has that been going on? It's a couple of years now.
Yeah, how did that really even get going here? We did the Man Boys movie in 2016, and then I forget what the project I was going to do after that, but I broke my collarbone at the beginning of January. Like we went on like this rail trip out to Kelowna and I snapped my collarbone. And so that pretty much ended that whole year right there. And I think after that, I was starting to think, because I missed out on riding all that powder. I was like, do I want to continue riding rails? Is that still something that I want to do? And I was like, no, I want to spend more time in the backcountry. And I think that's where Mikey and I started talking to me like, you know, maybe we can do something together. And that's, and honestly, at that point, I think I was originally going to start doing some Man Boys stuff with those guys. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we had Rusty, Jody, Matt, and Chris. And usually it's like a 4-person maximum in the backcountry.
That's true.
So there was never a spot for me to go and join it. Even if like, you know, like I would always like, I would film with whoever, like Mikey and I started spending a lot more time together and filming together. And I'd be like, hey, my footage is going to go to the Man Boys. But then, I don't know, fuck, we just started having so much fun. I was like, okay, cool. Like, we'll just keep this. Like, Powderhounds is never like a, you know, it's like, it's not like Man Boys and we're the Man Boys. And Mikey tried to make that clear. He's like, we're just Powderhounds. It's not like that's our crew name or whatever. You know? It's it was just a funny name and yeah.
Yeah, totally. And then you guys have this footage. You're like, we could probably do our own project.
Yeah.
Actually,
And
with all
Leyland
this.
put it together like so fucking awesome.
Oh,
like,
it was so,
just like,
yeah.
dude.
Like if I was to pick what I wanted to be the full-on freestyle guy in the backcountry that's like risking his life every single time, or what I want to be the guy that's not going to leave a beautiful line untouched, I think I'd want to be the second guy.
Yeah.
I'd want to be out there having more fun than
Totally.
stressing. I think there's a lot of magic in the movies where you don't see the stress that goes into them.
There's a lot more that goes into all those projects that we do.
Yeah.
100%. But I think that was also kind of starting to get into that point where I was like, you know what? Like, what do I want to do? Like, I'm not as like aggressive and risky and hungry as maybe I was in 2010, you know, I was like, I'm not the same rider I was. So I was like, where am I going to go from here? And I was like, I basically was just like, I'm just going to go and have as much fun as possible and just continue what I like to do. And if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to fucking do it.
Cool. Yeah, you've earned it. I think that's the thing about professional snowboarders is like early on, I can think of a couple of guys that when they got their ticket to free ride, their ticket to film, their freestyle parts just like it just fell off.
Yeah.
They're like, that's not what's important to me anymore.
But you know what? I think
they earned it. So it's
so-
like, yeah, cool. They're getting these epic trips, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't like saying like, oh, you earned it, so you can do whatever you like. There's
Okay.
still like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
level of like, you know, like you are a professional snowboarder. Like
Yeah.
you're supposed to be kind of like helping the sport progress.
yeah,
And I think it goes back to like what we briefly talked about, where I enjoyed riding the Black Bark. And like
Yeah.
people were like, come over to Whistler, just goof around. And I was like, but I am like goofing around. I am having fucking fun hitting these like 50-foot jumps. Like
Yeah.
that was fun to me at the time. And it's the same thing with like 2010, 2011, 2012. And I was like so heavily like wanting to hit the biggest fucking jumps and do like crazy tricks. That was fun to me. And it's like that same spirit, like I still want to go and snowboard and do as much as I can, but it's just different.
yeah.
I don't care as much to block up these huge cheese wedges and like do insane double corks over gaps or something. Like
Right,
that's
right.
just, it's just not there anymore.
Yeah, that push. Mm-hmm. So what's the push there? What's there?
I think, well, I think it comes down to kind of the creativity and for me, a lot of it is like exploring and finding new stuff. I really enjoy being out there and like trying to do something that's like getting me excited in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make sure that doesn't conflict in the way the videos are being perceived. I don't want to like, I'm not trying, the last thing I would want to do is just kind of like fucking milk it and chill and like not do anything, you know? Like, I want to continue doing that, but it's like, I don't want to go and hit these jumps and do these big tricks just for the sake of, I gotta, you know, like get somebody stoked, or I got to do this for my sponsor. Or whatever,
feel obligated.
Yeah. I hate fucking doing things because I feel obligated to do them.
It's really cool when you were talking about BOA before when we were upstairs, that design element, that architecture, design things.
Yeah.
You got to bring it to the Burton boot with the BOA project, right? Like that's, and that's exploring new territory. We're like, how can I be a professional? How can I use my expertise to make the sport better, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of the same thing.
It comes down to exactly what you kind of mentioned with UC, where it was like, there are elements of being a professional snowboarder that are not just your snowboarding. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like, like, oh, you should just be about the boarding, but it's like, there's so much more about snowboarding than just fucking snowboarding. It's like, I want to make better products.
Yeah.
Like if there's something I don't like, I want to go and like, let them know. It's like, let's make this better.
Totally.
That's like as like what I can do to kind of give back to making shit better for the next person.
Yeah, because you've got the ear of the actual designers. You're the expert that's on the product, and you can go back and say,
so something really cool that Jake has always been doing is the Rider Roundtable. And it was always at his house in New York or Long Island, and I've been going there since probably 2011 or 2012, and it's like 5 riders. Jake, George, his son, and like Timmy and like the other boys come along now too. But George was the first son to come join us, and then all the product heads, and they basically sit through and walk through every single product that Burton makes, and we give our feedback on it, color wise, this, that, and it's like we kind of sign off on all of that product before it gets made.
Wow!
And then we sit in and we do future meetings. So we're like, okay, cool. Like, what can we do now? Where do you see it going? What can we start working on? These kind of like out there projects. And that to me was like 5 days of school that I fucking loved.
Awesome.
Like I love sitting there and it's like talking with the crew, and like we had so much fun and we just talked product, and it was fucking awesome.
So how did you choose the BOA thing? Like, did you try the BOA boots and you're like, this is really good?
Yeah, they were already starting to work on it. And basically they were like, hey, we need somebody to come in and start helping with these boot designs, because I had already worked on the Imperial boot. I don't know if it's still in the line because now I'm riding Ion, but I was helping design with Imperial boot, which is kind of the softer, like it can be rails, park, and it can still work in the backcountry. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna do this BOA into this more like high end boot. It's called the Photon. And that's where I kind of helped them. I had like wider feet, so it was like I need a little bit more room. We wanted to make it like stiffer and more aggressive, and like kind of working with like the sequencing and lacing and all that kind of stuff, and design. And yeah, we just went back and forth for a little while. And since I was doing all that testing and helping with that, Bo was like, hey, like we heard you've been like a big advocate and like helping design this boot. Like, and they were already like fans of like stuff with man boys and like snowboarding. They're like, why don't you come and like, cause they had to shoot like a video, like basically a sales commercial for their sales team, for that boot. And they're like, why don't you come in? You can shoot this, but then we'll also do this interview because we might be doing this like pioneer program, which is like basically ambassadorship, kind of like representing kind of like the tech. And came in, did that, shot the interview. Amazing company. I got like, I felt like very comfortable in that company the way that I did when I went into like, or going into like the Burton offices. You just feel like people are there and they're like outdoor driven. They're there, like people working on like the BOA dials for fucking cycling are like, they love cycling and biking. Like they're there for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
So we did the interview and they're like, this is fucking awesome. We're going to start this. They started kind of going out to their different sports and like bringing people parts. So now it's like myself, Travis Rice, and Sage Kotzenberg on that kind of BOA pioneer team for snowboarding.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. And those guys are all such like smart, like very successful again. I feel like I'm not supposed to be
come
there.
on.
I know, but,
That's
but still, it's like,
yeah, you should be there. That's epic.
but yeah, it's I feel very, very lucky, and I think it is very important, that other side of snowboarding, to take advantage of it. Because again, it is like you're helping the product, you're riding it all the fucking time. You should want to make things better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important part of snowboarding.
When I was first selling stuff at the shop, I mean, I was riding with, track pants under my stuff. And I can remember being afraid. Yeah. Oh yeah. Total cotton
Stop
shit.
wearing cotton.
Yeah. It was so I didn't understand why I was cold. And then I don't know, some rep explained it to me with first layer. And then I was like, oh my God, you got to have the socks, the first layer, the mid layer. Up until that point, I'd always been like $40 for socks or whatever. And then I was like, wait, these guys are paying $400 for a pair of boots and then wearing cotton socks. Yeah. I'm failing them. Yeah. Like these expensive boots are designed to be used with technical socks.
It kind of goes back to like, we know snowboarding is a very expensive sport. Mm-hmm. Like it is. And like you can go and enjoy and fucking love snowboarding without that kind of stuff.
Totally.
But it's like, that is just, there's so many things that are just making it, how do I say it right? It's like, it's making it a lot more inviting to go out any day. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a Bluebird day or whatever. Know, it's like, fuck, I think it was like Terry or Mikkel or somebody said, there's like a Norwegian saying where it's like, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. It's like, it'd be cold as shit and fucking snowing. And like, if you plan ahead and you are wearing the right stuff, you can be so comfortable and having the best time out there.
Oh, totally.
It's like, there's no reason to like keep you locked in your house if it's like crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was talking with Tom Burt about the failure of gear early on. So he just, got on the North Face or whatever in the early 90s. Right. He's like, nothing else is technically that good. And even Jamie Lynn had some North Face stuff that he was like, when he went to sessions, he's like, we need to like up the material quality. Yeah. Because out there, you don't really think of those guys as designers, but they are designing when they're giving their expert knowledge to the company, saying, look, it's not that fun to be out in the Pacific Northwest on a day that it starts out snowing and then it's raining, then it's snowing again. Yeah. And your gear is just ruined and it doesn't work.
I think it's the responsible thing, like people would be surprised. The majority of like snowboarders are like very proactive on feedback because they want to they want to wear what they want to wear. They want their style, but then they want it to be the best and like progressive and growing. So it's not like, like a lot of snowboarders they're not just out there being like, oh, this is sweet. I'm like snowboarding. It's like, they're like, oh man, wish I had better gloves. Like, how can we make things better?
It's so brutal when you show up at the resort and you've forgotten, like one thing. You forgot your goggles or whatever, and you forget how important goggles are. They're like, you can't ride without them. Mm-hmm. You see people with their goggles on their heads on a pow day, and you're like, dude, oh man, what are you doing?
Snowboarding is like, it's such an individual sport. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it takes so many people a long time to learn just like, I don't want to say like the how-tos, but like the basic things of like fucking like you're like adjusting your high backs or like your stance, like you see people with like fucking 30-inch stances out there and you're like, dude, like you're going to have a lot more fun if you bring it in a little bit. Like these kind of like little things. And I love snowboarding for the individuality where you can do whatever you want, but I want to help like get past that learning curve so that you know what you're doing, like you're comfortable, you're having fun out there. Because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it where like there's little things to make snowboarding so much more fun. And sometimes you don't learn that until you're like years and years and you're like, I wish I knew this on my first fucking year.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I wish I could help with that.
Yeah, well,
if anybody has questions, if I can
let me know. Podcast or start the most watched YouTube videos are like how-to guys. Like you get millions of views of like how to lace your boots or whatever, that kind of stuff. Like I watch my own kids, before they do something, they could watch hundreds of hours of videos of how to do it, and we kind of were the opposite. It was like, we just go, like you go snowboarding. You don't know why your feet are freezing. Oh, I'm wearing these crappy socks. Yeah. Or your boots don't fit or whatever. I kept my toque and my goggles just in my boots so I wouldn't forget them for the first year. Oh my God, that was so gross.
Like, why are they fogging up so much?
Not just fogging up, they smell like shit. So I'm like, they're on a gondola and someone's like, what is that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, that's my toque been in my boot for most of the year. So gross, dude. It's so awesome to talk to you. You literally live and breathe snowboarding, and it shows. It's so cool. Yeah.
I think I'm just, I feel very, very fortunate that this is what I get to do. And I think I'm like, every day I feel like it's going to get potentially taken away from me, because I went through like an injury and it's like I couldn't snowboard, like there's so many things that I feel like you don't appreciate until you lose it to a certain degree. Like the start of after lame, I think David Bennick's talking about that. He's like, you don't know how good it is until it's like you don't have it in front of you. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you get hurt, you miss it. Fuck, you're like, I was so lucky. Like I took for granted how like I got to get up and watch sunrise in the backcountry, or like I was just riding the chairlifts with my friend, fucking hooting and hollering down on a powder day. It's like as soon as you miss it, you're like, man, I just feel very, very appreciative that this is fucking my life.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
What's going on with Whistler? Have they made an announcement on how they're going to run the chairlifts and stuff? I kind of see this year being like really long lift lines, like physically, like when you go to anywhere right now, you go to the grocery store, really long lines.
Yeah, I know that they have like a reservation system or something, so you have to kind of check in. I think the numbers, like the capacity of what can go on the hill is huge, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But
okay.
From what I heard, it was like they needed some level of control to potentially be like, yo, like you can't come up.
Yeah, we
so
can't have
like,
10 gondolas, 10 people.
Totally. We've all been there over like
right.
Christmas break, even at like Cypress or Seymour or whatever, where it's like there's fucking massive lineups. So it's
insane.
like I think they, from their perspective, they needed a control element.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll be fine. I mean, sure, you have to deal with some long lineups, but if everybody respects wearing masks, I don't think it'll be a huge issue.
You probably got to wear a mask and everything.
Face mask. I feel like people board it anyways.
Yeah, the Anon goggles have that clip mask.
That's MFI. Yeah,
dude, that thing's so sick.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's insane.
Again, I mean, I can't say it enough. Like I have been turning into quite a product nerd lately, and it's just like I feel so fortunate to be with Burton and Anon and like these kind of like techie things that I can start working on and be like, how can we make this like better and easier? And like I geek out on it. It's awesome.
It's so dope. Like that is one thing where it's apparent to everyone right away. They're like, wait, your mask just clips to the bottom of your goggles like that. So you can just pull it down and talk like normal. Bam.
Yeah.
Clip it back in and it just like magically is exactly where you want it.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, I love that one. That's good. And the magnetic lenses too.
Yeah.
It's been a few years that they've had those, and that's a game changer.
Yeah. I got these new ones I really like. They're called the Sync. So they lock in on one side. You basically put one side in first.
Yeah.
And then it magnets down. But then there's like a little hatch that kind of locks over the other side.
I have a pair of those.
Yeah. They're sick. I think compared to like some of the M4s that are like the high-end, high-tech, super amazing goggles, like these are quite a bit cheaper, I'm pretty sure. And they're fucking awesome.
Oh, so awesome. Yeah. Night and day. Yeah, I said it on the show. I forgot my goggles one time and had to wear some like cheapies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. It's a different experience on the hill when you've got like gear that's just not up for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Like you're getting a little bit of fog inside and you're like, wait, I haven't had fog in my lenses in forever.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's the biggest
So
killer
lucky.
when it's like little things of, man, I just wish I did like, the night before, like the extra step of like, my goggles are down there. I bet they're fine. And then the next day you're like, it would have taken me 2 minutes to put those in a proper spot.
Totally.
And now I'm living with the day of fog.
Wet gloves. Oh, or showing up without gloves and just trying to make that work. Holy jeez. Pretty awesome. Do you guys come down and do night riding? I know that you do actually.
Yeah. So Mikey pretty much rides Seymour and Cypress regularly.
That's crazy.
Same. I love riding Seymour, Cypress, and then I have the Whistler Pass as well. Mm-hmm. Honestly, for me, I love night riding. I think it's such like, it's funny. It's the same as day boarding except under lights. But for some reason, that like little bit of like shadows and just being up on a mountain at night, and especially like in Vancouver, so beautiful looking over the city. I'm just like,
awesome.
It's a little bit of like the same of what I love, but different.
Totally.
A little bit of like a change,
There's a different vibe and a different crew of people that are there at night.
And you know what? Like, like I said, I'm 34 now. All my friends are like adults. A lot of them, especially my city friends, are like Monday to Friday career driven. So it's like I get to go and snowboard with the people I don't usually get to ride with at night.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. Like that to me gets me the most excited. Like I obviously I love riding with the man boys and like everyone, and like we go to the park and I just get stoked on watching people do tricks. But then I will equally be excited to go and ride with somebody on a weekend when they only have like one day. This is their first day riding and they're hitting a jump and you can see the grin on their face.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is fucking snowboarding when I was younger. You know, like you were just fucking hyped up anything that you did.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ride for Jake at Cypress that was canceled, but then there was enough people there that we kind of did a let's just say safely distanced gathering.
Yeah.
And then that drop in from the top of Cypress. And there's like, I don't know how many people, 50, everybody just going.
Yeah.
And the conditions were not, perfect.
It's probably the fastest I've gone on my snowboard.
So fast, but so fun.
Yeah.
It was really inspiring to be around that many snowboarders. Like I'm quite a bit like you were saying in the beginning. I enjoy riding by myself or with like one or two great friends. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of a loner that way. But then also when you're in this group, you're like, oh, I forget how exciting and fun it is to ride with like a crew, especially if they're killing it. Like if you're just running laps and just killing it, oh, it's so much fun.
Again, I think it really comes back to like your perception of the situation, where we were all there. We were so excited to be there. It didn't like, I was saying hi to like people I didn't know. Obviously we were being smart about it, but it was like we were all there for like Jake, his legacy, snowboarding, the community in general, and just like feeling that like good vibe. It's like I was happy to fucking talk to anyone, and I always am. Like anyone, anytime I'm on the hill, I'm just like, yeah, like I would love to spark up a conversation. But it's like if you go there and you're like, oh, like there's like they have their little clique of friends, and it's like it's intimidating to go and talk to somebody. But man, I feel like snowboarding is such an inclusive, welcoming thing that it's. I'll do my best to be more inclusive, but still, it's like fuck, like. Come join us, fucking fall in love with snowboarding that we did, man. Like it's amazing. Like we're very, very fortunate.
We're
time in the mountains,
super
especially in
fortunate.
the area that we live.
Yeah, definitely one of the best places in the world to live for snowboarding. Like the day to day, like you can go snowboarding most days, unless it's it's just ice. Forget it.
You get rain to the peak and then frozen,
and then
next
frozen.
Morning.
Like,
yeah.
It's just no fun. This year's been a big Burton year for the community. Like with Jake's passing, it's like, okay, I actually always loved that company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Chris had that moment and he got the 77 tattoo.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is dope, man.
That's nice. Well, I really appreciate you having me on here and talking snowboarding. And fuck, we're less than a month away now.
So stoked.
I mean, it's snowing outside right now. I'm watching
so
it.
crazy.
The whole time that we've been talking, the window behind you, I've just been like, fucking keep snowing.
I can't even believe it. Yeah. Every year is that excitement. You can find a forecast that says it's going to be amazing.
I think something I have like October, November is almost my favorite time of year because I have the excitement for snowboarding without the almost like letdown of it not being as good as
of the reality of it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But I can't wait. The season's about to start and I just am fucking craving being on a mountain right now. I think we all are.
Yeah, dude. All right. That's a mic drop right there. FNRad shoutouts this week to Mark and his supporters at Burton and Boa. The Burton One World movie is streaming as of November 17th, so check it out, please. Dano and John Roth's new company, Side Channel, is almost 100% funded. Check out sidechannel_brand for a link to get an amazing pair of technical pants. That's on Instagram. Also on Instagram, please follow FNLoose, FNLOOSE. It's a new brand run by my buddy Andy and Jason Hilton. They're working on a website. They're offering really rad stuff, and they're my good buddies. The snow is falling and life is good. Thanks for all your love and support. Tell yourself I love you in the mirror 3 times a day this week. It's been doing a lot for my self-esteem to do that and to read your messages of encouragement sincerely. Been loving that. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.